and welcome to the IDA Annual Conference 2021. Happy New Year to you all. We have people joining us from around the globe, so good morning, good afternoon and good evening to you, depending on where you are. We are delighted that so many of you could join us today. We have colleagues from across the Civil and Public Service, the Diplomatic Corps, many of whom we partner with on a regular basis. Leaders from many of our current client companies, and of course we have the entire IDA team at home and abroad with us also. Our conference today is designed to give you an update on IDA's performance over the past year, the outlook as we see it for the coming 12 to 24 months, and also an outline of our new strategy for winning and supporting FDI over the next 4 years. In order to combat Zoom fatigue, we have endeavoured to make sure this conference is as special as possible. I hope you will all agree that we have a fantastic lineup, including Michael Dell of Dell, Chris Himes of Indeed, Peggy Johnson of Magic Leap, and Mike Mahoney of Boston Scientific. Mary Robinson will join us to discuss sustainability, a key pillar of our new strategy. The Taoiseach will address us, and I will discuss FDI and economic development with the Taoiseach. We will also hear from two of Ireland's foremost directors on the art of storytelling and lessons for IDA. All of that and more over the next few hours. This is not intended to be a one-way channel of communication. I'm very eager to hear from you, so please use the chat function to ask questions or just say hello. I will be checking in on the comments section throughout the conference. I want to begin this morning by acknowledging what a difficult year it has been for many and acknowledge the contribution of IDA colleagues and indeed our client companies in supporting the health service and the fight against COVID. 2020 has tested us all and there are many challenges still to come. But I think we are all looking forward to 2021 with renewed optimism, difficult as it may be given the current infection numbers. I also want to specifically acknowledge that it has been a difficult year for many businesses in both FDI and the domestically trading sector, and for many the challenges continue. I want to thank all of the multinational companies that we work with for what they have contributed to Ireland over the past year and congratulate them on how they have responded, pivoted and emerged from what has been a very difficult year for everyone. Let me run through some of our results and then I will talk to you a little about our strategy for the next 4 years. There are a lot of metrics that tell the story of FDI in Ireland. We could talk about the amount invested, exports, the impact on the economy, and we will get to some of those, but none are as important as the number of people employed in exporting multinational companies. It gives a good sense of the substance that is here, and despite everything, and in contrast to many other parts of the economy, FDI employment grew in 2020. There were over 20,000 jobs created in the multinational sector in the past year. Losses increased slightly to 11,179, leaving a net increase in employment of close to 9,000 jobs. In contrast to the rest of the economy, FDI employment increased by 3.6%, while it fell by 10.7% nationally. Direct FDI employment accounted for 12.4% of those employed at the end of the third quarter of 2020. And if we include indirect employment, FDI is responsible for 463,000 jobs in the economy. The results are better than expected, given the negative global economic impacts of the pandemic. They are also crucially important at a time of record high unemployment in Ireland. If we look at job creation and losses over the past 15 years, we can see that FDI employment in the past year has been much more resilient than during the global financial crisis. And even then it was more resilient and bounced back more quickly than the rest of the economy. We see a lower level of new jobs created in 2020 than we have seen in the past 5 years, and job losses running slightly above where we have seen in recent years. But in the context of a global pandemic, to be adding net jobs at this level looks like a remarkable outcome. It should be noted that we do not believe that we have seen all of the impacts of the pandemic yet, and that some more losses may yet manifest themselves in 2021. This graph shows the increase in FDI employment over the past decade. FDI employment in exporting firms is now at the highest level ever at over 257,000 people directly employed. Over the past year, there were 246 investments. This compares to 250 the previous year. This figure was helped by the strong pipeline we had coming into 2020, our focus on existing investors in Ireland, and also by our ability and our clients' ability to pivot to a virtual world. We always want to see companies investing for the first time. In 2020, 95 companies invested in Ireland for the first time. We also want to see existing companies expand, and 73 companies did that. And we want to see companies investing in research and development, and we saw 46 do that in 2019, 17 of which were investing in R&D for the very first time. This makes the companies stronger and stickier from an Ireland perspective. Crucially, 128 of investments, or 52%, were outside of Dublin. Where did these investments come from? Well, the largest number of investments this year came from North America, 164, 57 from Europe and 25 from growth markets. Asia-Pac being the predominant source there. The percentage of investments from North America was slightly higher than what we have seen in recent years at 66.6% in comparison to 62.8% of investments in 2019. This is probably due to our focus on existing clients, where the majority of the install base is from North America. As you will see from this slide, the increases were driven by IT and pharmaceuticals. Other manufacturing, which includes traditional engineering, showed a decrease, which is consistent with what we observed during the course of the year. It is likely that we will continue to see pressure on these subsectors, and it makes the rollout of our digital transformation supports and Industry 4.0 even more important. Securing regional investment, as you all know, is a key objective for IDA, and we have seen significant progress over the past 6 years. Securing regional investments remains very challenging, not least because it runs against the global flow of investment towards urban areas. As you can see, employment in all regions except the border region increased over the past year. And this is consistent with what we have seen over the past 5 years, where there has been significant employment increase in all regions. IDEA is committed to continue to win investments in regional locations in line with the national planning framework, and it is a key pillar of our new strategy. I have set out here some of the announcements over the past year. I would remind you that only a fraction of our client companies announce their investments. There are some great examples here, like Regeneron in Limerick announcing 400 new jobs on top of their already substantial presence there. Qualcomm announcing a multi-million euro expansion to their Cork facility. Harmac creating 60 new jobs in Castlerea in County Roscommon. Diligent establishing their new international offices in Galway. Amazon's investment in renewable energy in a wind farm in Galway, as well as AWS announcing 1,000 new jobs in Ireland. TikTok increasing its presence in Ireland from 20 to 1,100 employees in 1 year. And Microsoft, which continually builds on its presence, creating 200 new engineering roles in Dublin, as well as unveiling its new engineering hub. This slide shows at a high level the contribution of FDI to the Irish economy in 2019. As can be seen, the expenditure in the economy on payroll, Irish material and services, is significant at over 25 billion, as is the annual capital expenditure by multinationals, which in 2019 was over 7 billion. This slide also shows the substantial impact on the national accounts in terms of corporate taxation paid by multinationals, which accounts for over 70% of all corporation tax paid. This contribution continued during the course of 2020. The income tax paid by those employed in the multinational sector also proved resilient during the past year and has helped to mitigate the economic impact of the pandemic in Ireland. The global outlook for FDI in 2021 remains very challenging. The OECD and the UN continue to predict significant reductions in global FDI flows. IDA believes it will be a challenging year for new investments, not least because of the lower level of investment activity over the past 9 months, which will have an impact in 2021. The pandemic is still with us, as tired as we may all be of it, and we must retain our resolve, obviously, to fight it. The advent of vaccines and therapies present new hope, but we are by no means out of the woods, as recent figures demonstrate. For FDI, it is not just what happens in Ireland, but what happens in other countries. Vaccines and new therapies do present hope that an increased level of economic activity might be possible by the second half of 2021. We are in the first few days of a new relationship with our nearest neighbours, the UK, and we have still to see how that unfolds. I believe that IDA clients, for the most part, are well prepared for the impact of the new trading arrangements, and we have as yet not seen any significant issues as our clients entered into the new year. The pandemic has increased nationalistic and protectionist tendencies globally. This is not good for Ireland. We will monitor closely how companies respond to these political developments. On tax, we expect to see some sort of consensus developing at a global level on how best to tackle base erosion and profit shifting. While some of these developments could negatively impact on Ireland, having a global deal and the stability it would provide us is preferable to unilateral actions by individual countries. Competitiveness remains a key, and we would urge government to continue to ensure in all its actions that it keeps in mind that we are competing for investment in a very competitive international environment. We cannot rest on our laurels and take investment for granted. COVID has hastened the advance of technological disruption. That is why IDA will focus heavily on digitization and Industry 4.0 in its new strategy. That is a good segue to our new strategy, driving recovery and sustainable growth, a 4-year strategy that will run from 2021 to 2024. The full strategy is now available at idaireland.com, and you can peruse it at your leisure. I'll just cover the key points. Our strategy aligns closely with government's forthcoming National Economic Plan and government's key policy initiatives. Our vision and mission remain constant. We partner with multinationals to win and develop FDI, provide jobs and economic impact for the people of Ireland, and our ambition is always to be the best in the world at doing that. We have core values around public service, passion for performance, professionalism, and a commitment to the excellence of our people that pervades all that we do. Our strategy seeks to consolidate and build on our previous successful strategy and the very positive existing impact of foreign direct investment in Ireland. The strategy places sustainable growth at the centre, sustainable in every sense. The strategy will be delivered through a focus on 5 interlinked pillars: growth, transformation, regions, sustainability, and impact. It will be underpinned by organisational excellence within IDA itself, and specifically an investment in digital transformation. One of the successes of IDA is that it has constantly reinvented itself over decades to keep pace with its target investments. And we will do that again over the next 4 years as we focus on digitisation of our processes. Our objective is to drive growth, target the next wave of investments and subsectors, continue to diversify our source markets, and seek high-impact investment that aligns with national development goals. We want to assist our clients to transform their operations, to continually evolve, to digitize, to invest in Manufacturing 4.0, and to win new mandates. We will support our clients to invest in their teams. We will continue to support clients to increase their R&D activity in Ireland. We will win more investments for regional locations aligned to the national planning framework. We will support existing clients in regional locations to expand and transform. We will promote remote working in regional locations. We will build on our successful regional property programme. Sustainability is a key pillar of our new strategy, and it also permeates all of the other pillars. We will support our existing clients to decarbonise and invest in sustainable business practices. We will target green investments, and we will ensure that we reduce the energy usage within IDA's own property portfolio, as well as promoting biodiversity on our business parks. And we will work with FDI to maximise the impact of its presence here through greater economic contribution to the Irish economy. Increase the spillover effects through clustering on Irish SME productivity. We have set very detailed targets for each pillar. I have just set out some of the headline ones here. These include winning 800 investments and 50,000 jobs over the next 4 years. We have set out targets for investment in R&D, upskilling and sustainable investments and economic impact. Focusing on cutting-edge sectors has served Ireland well. This can be seen particularly during the course of the pandemic, where the sectors we are strongest in, like pharma, medtech and IT, have proven very resilient. We will continue to focus on new areas of opportunity within these sectors, including in advanced manufacturing. We are currently building a national advanced manufacturing centre in Limerick, in cell and gene therapy, in which we will invest through NIBRT, in cybersecurity, connected and autonomous vehicles, for which we will support clusters for both FDI and Indigenous companies, in cloud computing, AI, and in big data. One of the key successes of the last strategy was the increase in investments in all regions of the country. Despite the challenging period ahead, IDA has maintained the same targets pro rata for the number of investments we will win in each region. This is going to be very challenging, and we will need other stakeholders to step up and support us to win investments, particularly local authorities. We have set out a target of 400 investments outside of Dublin in the next 4 years. In arriving at the targets, IDEA was mindful of the National Development Plan, the National Planning Framework, but also where the greatest need is from an economic development perspective. Key to supporting our regional investments is our property investment programme, which sees IDA invest in strategic sites and advanced buildings to allow investors to have turnkey solutions. IDA will deliver 19 advanced building solutions to regional locations over the course of our new strategy. IDA will invest in significant infrastructure projects across our portfolio of business and technology parks to upgrade and maintain these key assets in line with the evolving requirements of IDA and EI clients. IDA will also maintain a focus on land banks and utility-intensive strategic sites to future-proof the ability of our property portfolio to support the project pipeline, most notably larger-scale, capital-intensive projects which have a significant regional and national economic impact. And finally, it is through our clients that all of this has to happen. So we will stay close to them, support them, help them to win new mandates and deliver on the mandates that they currently have. Okay, I think it's time to take a few questions. Well, thank you for all of your feedback on both the results and the new strategy. A lot of positive comments coming in that you can hopefully see appearing there in the chat stream. I want to pick up on a few of those in a moment. Please do continue to ask questions or make observations. We might not get to them all, but we will certainly capture them. Also, for those of you posting on social media, details for IDA and the conference are available there on the screen at IDA Ireland and hashtag IDA 2021. Now, I want to particularly acknowledge our colleagues dialing in from the US, where it is early morning for many. I think I saw one of my colleagues, Alan McGlinchey, dialing in there from the West Coast and commenting. I believe many of us were very saddened to see the unsettling pictures from Washington, DC overnight. There is a great affection for the US in Ireland, and it has long been a beacon for democracy, and we send our best wishes to all of our colleagues, our US colleagues at this point, and I know also we're joined by colleagues from American Chamber this morning. So we look forward to better days there. There are a number of questions coming in. Kevin Salmon reminded me that the probably two most asked questions yesterday by the media were about the immediate future for 2021 and the future of the office. And then connected to that, I see Cormac McDonagh from Golub asking about broadband and remote working. So I'm going to maybe talk about one of the two of those for a moment, and I suppose starting with the outlook for 2021 specifically. I think the answer is that we don't yet know. So much will depend on what happens with the course of the virus. We know from the numbers so far this week that we are on a particularly difficult trajectory just right now, and that is why government decided to take such significant measures yesterday. It is, of course, not just about the course of the virus here, but also the course of the virus elsewhere, because obviously the business we're in, FDI, it's a global business. It will also depend on the rollout of vaccines here and elsewhere. And obviously we've gotten some good news yesterday in that regard with the approval of the Moderna vaccine. And we're going to hear a lot more about that from Luke O'Neill a little bit later on. Some comments and questions also then about, I suppose, the return to office. We got this a lot yesterday, and what the new office environment might be post this period, and remote working versus office environment. I think it's very clear that we are not going back to where we were, people working set hours in offices 5 days a week. But in my view, we're not going to a situation where everything is done remotely or virtually either. We have learned that we can do so much more through technology, but we also know what some of the limitations are. I believe that there will still be a need for co-location, including for reasons of collaboration, innovation, driving creativity, building teams, and creating a culture. Onboarding new team members and training, I think, has been much more difficult in a virtual environment, and particularly for businesses and professions that have a kind of apprenticeship model as part of their training. These are all key themes that we will pick up on with some of our global CEOs that are joining us later in the program. And again, I'm not sure there's one singular answer, but we'll see what everybody's perspectives are on that. And now I want to go to our minister, the Minister for Enterprise, Trade and Employment, Untitled Chapter, who will share with us some remarks on last year's performance and the new IDA strategy.